Good morning, everyone. This is Michael Robbins, and I am broadcasting to you here from the Temple of Silence in Luoma, Finland, near Helsinki, substituting for my wife, Tuija. We're all very busy here preparing for an event which is going to be focusing on the first three initiations and what we can do now and in the future to prepare for those important events which will make us more and more useful to humanity. I hope you can bear with me this morning. I guess I'm my own engineer, and so if I had as many hands as Shiva or as many arms, I'd be doing very well. But for the moment, it is as it is. This morning we're going to have a focus on the souls of nations, not so much any particular nation as a triangle of nations, namely the United States, Great Britain, and Russia. And these are very important for the destiny of humanity. In his wonderful book, The Destiny of the Nations, Master DK has given us fantastic information about the qualities of these particular interacting nations in the world, and he has given us rare insight. I have a feeling that this book was being prepared as lessons for a special group of, intended to be 9 students, and only 3 of them were finally gathered. It was the 5th of the seed group of political workers, and I imagine that this book had a number of instructions for them, but it's absolutely useful for everyone. So there will be some academic material in what we're going to discuss, but at the same time there will be opportunity for meditation as we invoke the soul aspect of these 3 nations, which have so much to do with the success of humanity. And while we're at it, of course, try to tune in on your triangles network, your little network. You know, you may start with 1 triangle, or you may have 50. But tune in on that network and the way it is related to the greater triangles network, which can convey the powerful higher energies which can redeem humanity with light, goodwill, love, and eventually the will to good, and redeem from the inside. So just attune to that network as we are doing our work together. Now here we have the 5 major inlets for hierarchical energy, and we're going to focus namely on, London, Geneva, and New York. The Geneva energy, the city itself has a Ray 1 soul and a Ray 2 personality, so it's certainly tied in with the idea that will is love, and it is the seat of a major seat for the United Nations, and it controls all of Europe in a sense, and also Russia. The major planetary energy flowing through it, considering it not so much as a city but as a planetary center, is the 2nd ray of love wisdom, and we are told in a very pure form. That and Darjeeling with its essentially Ray 1 energy. Then we'll be dealing with New York, for which the United States, well, maybe I should Yeah. Um, well, okay, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. But let's just talk about the cities. New York has, as a city, the second ray soul and the third ray personality. It's a great communications center, and it's operative for the entire Western Hemisphere, mainly the Americas, both of the Americas, even though it's situated in North America. From a planetary perspective, it has the great devotion and idealism. And I think the symbol of the Statue of Liberty is very apt here, holding the torch aloft. You know, I see the highest light controls is the idea. We'll talk about the country particularly and its rays. These are capital cities, or if not capitals, they are very important within the nations. When it comes to London, we're dealing with with Great Britain, and it's no longer the British Empire. It's more a commonwealth, we might say, of interrelated nations. Interestingly, of the city itself, the soul ray is the fifth. And this is going to relate it, of course, to the solar angels and to the great advancements in science that we have had through London and through the scientific societies there, Newton and the like. And its personality ray, very formal, the seventh ray, and we see that in all the marvelous types of ceremonies that occur whenever the Londoners come out and celebrate some truly national event, especially, you know, coronations and weddings and things of that sort. It operates for the entire, well, they call it the British Empire, but let's just call it the interrelated nations that were part of the British Empire. It is a Ray 1 center from a planetary perspective, but that is along the Vulcanian line, the building line. If you think about it, Great Britain is ruled by Taurus in its personality nature, and Vulcan is both the esoteric and hierarchical ruler, so it seems rather natural to have the constructive side of the first ray through Vulcan operating there. I won't talk so much about Tokyo at the moment because it doesn't represent any nation or area which is key to the destiny of humanity in a very powerful way, although every great city and center is important to the destiny of humanity. And then Darjeeling, again, a very pure type of first ray force flows through it in a planetary sense, but that's not the topic for today's discussion. Here are the planetary centers as represented. And the ones we will focus on are New York, London, and Geneva, representing the United States, representing Great Britain, and representing Russia in this particular case. Russia is a very important nation from which the New World religion, we are told, will arise. Now, you know, it's quite fascinating that not only do the capital cities or important cities and not only do the nations have rays, but the entire areas have rays. And we could say that the rays of the Orient are the fourth ray soul and the third ray personality. It's interesting that all the other rays involving the Occident and Orient are along the 246 line, but only the ray 3 personality of the Orient remains as part of the hardline rays. So, you know, there is a certain redemptive factor that must be applied in the Orient. It has been told, interestingly, that occultism is moving to the West, and that the great mysteries and the contact with the hierarchy will be primarily worked through in the West. Of course, the Orient is the seat of fantastic wisdom, but that wisdom is being, in a practical manner, transferred to the West. The Occidental rays, again, the fourth ray of humanity, on the personality level, but the second ray, soul, which will eventually be the soul ray of humanity. Now, you know, the fourth ray soul of humanity is the present ray, and maybe the fifth ray personality. So the Orient has a very strong connection with that kind of harmony through conflict energy, the conflict which has characterized humanity down the ages, you know, through Atlantis, which is the fourth root race, and through India, which has inherited much from the moon chain, and from Atlantis, India with its fourth ray personality. Interestingly, China, massive country, with its third ray personality. So when we look at the Orient, we're finding the personality ray of India, and we're finding the personality ray of China, at least the present personality rays. Now, however, when we look at the Occident, we see the future. And eventually humanity will be in a position to express the great second ray of love, wisdom, through its fourth ray personality. It will become the beneficent head of all the lesser kingdoms. So we keep this in mind as we think of these nations. And now I have some text to read from a couple of pages in the Destiny of the Nations, and that will, I hope you can follow it there, and my apologies to people who have other languages as their first language. The books were written in English, you know, and I hope that it's possible to follow the English. There have been excellent translations in a number of different countries, but this is all I can do at the moment. So let's think together about the map, about the United States, about Great Britain, and about Russia. Related, let's keep in mind, through the following rays. The United States, a second ray soul, and a sixth ray personality, causing a lot of trouble at the present moment, but it's been very victorious and important in the past. Great Britain with its first ray soul and its, second ray soul and first ray personality. And I think I should tie in the astrological signs there for you. In the United States, the soul is Aquarius. So it's a second ray Aquarian soul. You can see the marvelous promise for the future. The personality zodiacal sign is Gemini, and you can see with Gemini and the sixth ray how the cleavages can occur. The great pairs of opposites, soul and personality, warring against each other in a militant manner. When we come to Great Britain, its second ray soul is operating through a major second ray sign, Gemini, which is said to be the head of the cosmic Christ. And through Gemini comes at this time majorly the second ray. When it comes to the personality of Great Britain, it is Taurus and the first ray, and we can see how those energies fit together, and the certain stubborn, materialistic, and concrete impositional attitude from the personality perspective of Great Britain has been historically the case. And now we go to a different country, no longer the Soviet Union, and actually DK didn't write so much in terms of the Soviet Union. He wrote about Russia, really, and that great country has the seventh ray soul along with Aquarius, just like the United States. So it has the ray of the new age as its soul ray, a seventh ray Aquarian soul. You can see how very important it will be during the new age, and interestingly, I think a great ceremonial religion will emerge out of Russia. DK says the New World religion will emerge, but I'm sure it will have its ceremonial aspects. As far as the personality of Russia, it's the sixth ray, just like the United States, and Leo is the sign, so there can be a lot of militancy there as well, just as in the United States, and that urge to dominate via Leo which has been the case and really did create so much of the history of Russia and so much of the history even of the Soviet Union. So that gives you a little bit of a background, and the cities through which there is going to be functioning, of course, will be Washington, London, and Moscow, but only one of them is truly a planetary center in the sense we are considering. So as a little background, let me read what the Tibetan has said. 3 great countries hold the destiny of humanity in their hands at this time. He always qualifies it, of course. It could change, but at this time could be really for a greater part of the Aquarian age. 3 great countries hold the destiny of humanity in their hands at this time: the United States of America, Great Britain, and Russia. Now, listen to this important idea. Great fusing racial experiments are going on in all these lands. The rule of the people is being developed in all of them. You know, it sounds like democracy, not monarchy, and though it is as yet in an embryonic stage. In Russia, it is being, well, that was written back in the 40s, it is being retarded by a dictatorship which will shortly end. It ended, I think, in 1953 with the death of Stalin. In the States, the obstruction, the retardation, is caused by corrupt politics. Well, has anything changed, I wonder? And in Great Britain, by ancient imperialistic tendencies with its first ray personality. The only place the first ray is really coming in these 3 is via Great Britain. But democratic principles are being developed, if not controlling. Religious unity is being established, though it is not yet functioning. And all 3 countries are learning very rapidly, though the United States at present is learning the most slowly. The 5 cities, which are the exoteric expression of the esoteric center of force, and through which the hierarchy and Shambhala are seeking to work, are the correspondents in the planetary body to the 4 centers up the spine and the ajna center in the body of humanity and of individual man. Very interesting. In all 3 cases, they are living vital points of dynamic force to a greater or lesser extent. And we looked at those 5 planetary centers. How to assign them? Well, you know, there is debate on that, and I can offer you a possibility. Some predominantly express soul energy and some personality force. Some are influenced by Shambhala on the first ray line, right? And some by the hierarchy. Let's see, Geneva and New York, being 2nd and 6th ray planetary centers respectively, are influenced by hierarchy, let us say, and the others are first ray centers, all 3 of them. London, Tokyo, Darjeeling, all first ray centers, presumably influenced to various degrees by Shambhala. The head center of the Occident, whatever that is beginning to react to 2nd ray energy, and the Ajna center to 4th ray energy, and in this lies the hope of the race of men. The 2nd and 4th ray, the 2nd ray coming in strength with the soul of the planet and with the reappearance of the Christ in his hierarchy along the predominantly 2nd ray line, and this will influence the harmony tendency of humanity, which will be increased as the 4th ray comes into a monadic expression in the year 2025. Now, when you're looking to go up the spine, it's hard to say exactly, but I would say London could easily represent the Ajna center. That's as high as we seem to go. New York as a communication center, very much the throat center. Geneva, the heart center. Now we're left with Tokyo, which is such a strong 6th ray. Japan has the 4th ray soul and 6th ray personality, and Tokyo has the 6th ray soul and the 4th ray personality, probably the solar plexus. I think we're not including the sacral center in this alignment because it is considered a temporary evocation, and maybe Darjeeling related to the base of the spine or possibly to the crown center. It's certainly the center through which the purest first ray force enters. Research into the various national centers and their esoteric rooting energies reveal in a more universal manner and with a wider horizon the destiny of humanity in relation to its group units, and these are the countries, large and small. The soul and personality qualities of nations will be studied. We're doing it right now, a little bit. The centers within each nation will focus certain ray energies. The center within each nation which focus certain ray energies will be noted, and the qualitative emanations of its 5 or 6 major cities will be investigated. You kind of wonder why there aren't 7, but we're not really there yet. We're still in the 5th root race, and some are branching towards the 6 sub-rays of the 5th root race and even towards the 6th root race, so maybe 6 centers will emerge, but not 7 yet. Let me here give you an instance of what I mean. So he talks about the United States, and we can think about our politics at the moment. The influences of New York, maybe, throat center, Washington, head center, Chicago solar plexus center, Kansas City, is it the solar plexus center in the heart's? No, it's not. Chicago is the solar plexus, so it's got to be either the sacral or base of the spine, and Los Angeles, definitely the heart center, will be the subject of scientific research. The psychic atmosphere and the intellectual appeal will be studied. Effort will be made to discover the soul quality and the personality nature, the spiritual and the material tendencies of these great aggregations of human beings which have come into expression in certain fixed localities because they are expressions of the force centers in the vital body of the nation. So we can study those cities. They'll be very important. And he does, I think, in my mind, only Kansas City is up in the air, but you kind of wonder whether there is a base of the spine center operative yet. Well, maybe there is to an extent. Kansas City is in the heartland of the United States. Similarly, now he gives the rundown in terms of Great Britain, the British Empire at that time. A study will be made of London, Sydney, Johannesburg, Toronto, and Vancouver, with subsidiary studies of Calcutta. At that time it was very related, India very related to London and Great Britain, Calcutta, Delhi, Singapore, Jamaica, and Madras. And I'm going to leave the assignment of those centers to those who are more from the area and have more expertise in that. You kind of wonder, though, whether London would not be the head center somehow of the British Empire, but other people may have other ideas. Under the plan, and contingent upon energies pouring through the 5 planetary centers, according to the plan, there are 3 great fusing energies or vital centers present upon our planet. And here's why it's so important that a triangle of force be consciously created between these 3 countries. Russia, fusing and blending Eastern Europe and Western and Northern Asia. Okay, Western and Northern Asia. Although, Geneva as a center would have more to do with the Eastern European part, I suspect. The United States and later South America, not immediately, but once we get into the 6th root race, fusing and blending Central and Western Europe and the entire Western Hemisphere. So we have to have these relations, not just control over the particular area that these countries rule or are prominent within, but also connections with the other aspects of the world. And the British Empire fusing and blending races and men throughout the entire world. The great second-ray soul of that empire operating in a first-ray manner as a planetary center. Now, this is the important thing, and keep this in mind as our meditation begins, that in the hands of these nations lies the destiny of the planet, not just humanity, for heaven's sake, but the planet as well. In the hands of these nations lies the destiny of the planet. These are the 3 major world blocks from the consciousness angle, and from the angle of world synthesis. So let's remember, two second-ray soul nations and one seventh-ray soul nation. And we can see how important those rays are together for fusing and blending the opposites, and the higher and the lower, and for creating a synthesis. Other and lesser nations will participate in the process with full independence, so important, and cooperation voluntarily, and through the perfecting of their national life. That means their soul ray and an astrological soul sign have to emerge, the perfecting of the national life in the interests of the whole of humanity, and through the desire to express and preserve their soul integrity and their purified national purpose, which purification is going on now, in the war and following the Great Second World War. That's why homogeneity among nations is not desirable. It's not desirable that we all be of one homogeneous nature and color and quality. We have our own distinct soul qualities to contribute to the whole. So that's why the national soul, the national culture, has to be very well protected. The keynote, however, and this is the important thing of human living, will be struck by Russia, from which the New World religion will involve the Great Britain, great system of justice and law, and the United States, its idealism, its psychology, its expressive humanity. Not because of their power, their historical past, and their material resources or territorial extent, but because they are in a position, and this is the important part in the New Age, when the Christ is returning and the second and seventh rays are so strong, because they are in a position to fuse and blend the many types, because they are far visioned in their world purpose, because they are not basically selfish in their intent, and because the government of the peoples reaches down into the depths of each nation and is fundamentally for the people. Their basic constitution, Magna Carta, and the Bill of Rights are human. So this will bring out the divinity of humanity, these three great nations, and we have to reinforce and help that triangle and understand something about the soul nature. And others will be swept in line with these principles if they are already based on these human principles and not on the rule of a powerful minority exploiting an unhappy majority. The other nations will cooperate freely with these greater nations in a federation, notice that gives everybody their independence, right? But unity and cooperation along with the independence in a federation of purposes and of interests until such a time as all the nations of the world see the vision clear, forego their selfish aims, and agree in the unity of the work to be done for the whole. Humanity will then emerge into the light of freedom. The Lords of Liberation, that great one Lord of Liberation who connects with freedom, equality, and fraternity, Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini, the air signs coming into power. Humanity will then emerge into the light of freedom and a revealed beauty and a spiritual purpose hitherto unknown. So that's the foundation for us to think in these terms, if we possibly can. And now, with that preamble in mind, we get back to the meditation, or let's say we begin the meditation itself. So remember, the second ray soul of the United States and its sixth ray personality, the second ray soul of Great Britain and its first ray personality, the seventh ray soul of Russia and its sixth ray personality. And two of those nations have the great sign Aquarius as their soul sign, and that's what we're moving towards the expression of the soul. Only the personality of Russia on the Leo nature stands opposite that soul quality. So here with the thought of all they can do for the world, we will go forward. And we align with the great Lord Maitreya, who is the head of the hierarchy and is bringing forward the soul of the planet, the second-ray soul of the planet, and promoting the eventual second-ray soul of humanity. And as souls together and united together in unity, we say, we have gathered in your name, Lord Maitreya, be with us. And we see the Christ influence operative in these three fusing, blending, experimental nations. And the Christ influence will help each one of them do its part in preparing for his reappearance and for the coming out of his hierarchy. We remember that in each of the planetary centers, and I think we have to focus on these three particularly, New York, London, and Geneva, a master, or maybe more than one, but a master will be found, and his disciples and initiates around him. And the whole area for which that particular planetary center is responsible will be looking to the master and his disciples and initiates for advice and wise counsel. So love is the key in all these nations, regardless of what their contribution may be. A great idealism in the United States, a sense of fair play and justice and inclusiveness in Great Britain through London, and somehow the emergence of a new invocatory religion, a scientific religion involving the etheric nature with beautiful scientific ceremonies coming through Russia. So we say together, as we imagine the Christ influencing these three nations, we know, O Lord of life and love, about the need. Touch our hearts anew with love, that we too may love and give. And we invoke the souls of these nations, the love, wisdom, the ceremonial order, the ray of the soul of our planetary logos and of the hierarchy, and the ray of the New Age, great fusing and blending experiments of a racial, cultural nature operating here, affecting everybody on this planet. And we know that, as it is said, He for whom the whole world waits has said that whatsoever shall be asked in His name, and with faith in the response, we'll see it accomplished. And we think about what we're asking, but obviously for the loving harmonization of humanity under the influence of these three great nations, with all nations that may cooperate, working in full cooperation. I think that many of us listening and working with the Trans-Himalayan occultism are working in relation to one or other of these planetary centers. And these planetary centers represent the three nations we're speaking of, so we can all participate subjectively in drawing forth the soul quality, the necessary soul quality, until the entire world, representing through its nations the soul qualities, will stand expressive of those soul qualities, and a beautiful harmony, interactivity will be created, and humanity, we see humanity enriched. And the flags of all nations will represent a great idealism which will lead to unity and harmony, and not to idealistic warfare, or the warfare of various competing idealisms. And the Christ, as we may see in this image, will have His quality pervading the entire planet and all aspects of humanity. This will be the goal of the Aquarian Age. And we will find the United States and Russia with the Aquarian soul nature promoting this very strongly. And of course the Gemini aspect of Great Britain, which gives a brotherhood. It will be very important. It will come into expression in the last 720 years of the Aquarian Age. And along with Libra merging so powerfully in the planetary horoscope, we will have what we need to have the spirit of peace, the Prince of Peace, the Libran energy, creating balance, harmony, equilibrium throughout the world. And then the dove, as we see symbolized here, will be a great and important symbol for humanity, and a true peace will prevail. And right now we're working through many aspects of idealistic warfare, but with a greater vision, a more completed point of view, a divine understanding, all of them qualities of Libra. We will end this warfare of competing ideals on the sixth ray, and the second ray will begin to take over. So in that sense of peace, or the impending peace that will come before the Christ reappears to a certain measure, and certainly after he reappears, as the biblical prophecies tell us, we will sound together great invocation number 1, which calls for the peace. And we do that together. Let the forces of light bring illumination to mankind. Let the spirit of peace be spread abroad. May men of goodwill everywhere meet in a spirit of cooperation. May forgiveness on the part of all men be the keynote at this time. Let power attend the efforts of the great ones. So let it be, and help us to do our part. Of course, right now we're in a period when the second great invocation will be important, and the power of death, of Pluto, of cutting away from some of the old bad ways must be expressed. But then we will emerge into the period when the new and great third stanza of the invocation will be truly operative, and the energies will flow in. There are many nations here portrayed. Tuya and I have been presenting qualities of these nations and their souls, and we, and especially she, will continue to do that week after week until we've covered all the nations of the United Nations. We will continue to work in that way. And then, perhaps once we've done that, we'll start all over again and keep the idea of the souls of nations emerging. It's not possible for all nations to express as souls, because just like people, they're at different stages of integration, and some have to develop their mental personality nature first, but the higher qualities of all nations can, I think, come forward. And excuse me if there's a little bit of cutting, it happens occasionally in the atmosphere, and we'll do our best to keep it as consistent as possible. And the United Nations will grow in power and be truly United Nations, and not just jockeying for the expression of their selfish personality nature. Geneva, we've seen here in the United States, the United Nations, and the center of control will be moving towards New York, we presume, under the second ray, and this will be the influence of the Christ. The flags of all nations will represent great ideals, blending in harmony with each other. And we will continue to present the possibility of tuning in with the peoples all over the world and drawing forth their best. Tomorrow our usual Sunday presentation will occur. It will be the attracting of money for hierarchical purposes, and we are on the morning schedule now. In the week following, the afternoon 5 p.m. schedule will take over, and all the time given is in Greenwich Mean Time. And so now, friends, we will begin to work toward the close of our meditation by attuning with the great world prayer, the great invocation. And as the words are sung, then do your best to attune to the ideas. And if the stream cuts out every now and then, well, just exercise continuity of consciousness. Well, friends, we'll close our meditation with calling Maitreya Buddha, which is really what it's all about as we attempt to pave the way in our own little ways for the reappearance of the great Lord Maitreya, the Christ, and his hierarchy.
Oh.